Hi, I'm David Garfinkel, and I want to tell you a story about a kid in the 7th grade. This was way back in the 1960s. And in those days they didn't even have middle school, it was called junior high school. And he found out that if you took these toothpicks and you poured tincture of cinnamon, which you could get at that time at a drugstore, on the toothpick, just a little bit, you had a really tasty cinnamon toothpick, and it was sort of like candy, a little hot on your lips, but hot in your tongue, but it didn't have any calories. And so after he did that, he gave one to a friend at school. The friend liked it, and then he said, hey, this is really cool. I could sell these for a penny a piece, and it cost me like, I don't know, 10 for a penny, so I'd make 9 cents profit on every 10 that I sold. And he started doing that, and guess what happened? The school administration found out about him, and they didn't take him down. They issued a new rule. They banned cinnamon toothpicks from the school. And that student got his first lesson in entrepreneurship and his first lesson in obstructive government regulation. That was me, of course. Now, I'm not telling you that to sell you a cinnamon toothpick. In fact, I don't even make them anymore. I got taught my lesson by the administration in 7th grade, so I got into other businesses like coaching and teaching and copywriting and lots of things like that. The reason I told you that was I got an email today from a client, said, David, could you give me a list of books that are really good about storytelling? And I thought, I actually wrote back to him. I said, yeah, here's some of the books, and you know, this would make a great YouTube video. So here it is. Let me share with you. Stories are not just good for reminiscing about your wayward youth. They're also really helpful in helping people get to know you pretty quickly. I mean, don't you feel, if this is the first time you've ever seen me, like you know me a little better than if I'd started to tell you the name of the junior high school and the location and the year and what I was good at? You really got to know a little about me and something that happened to me, and maybe you don't feel like you've known me forever, but so stories are a real good way of shortcutting the getting to know you process. In business, that's important because people like to do business with people they're comfortable with, and one of the main reasons people don't trust other people is simply because they don't know them yet. So stories are a real shortcut. Now, on to the books. Here's one. It's called Unlimited Selling Power by Donald Moyne and Kenneth Lloyd. You can get this on Amazon. This is a real cut-to-the-chase sales story book. It's very pragmatic. It's not a lot about, you know, stories for the silver screen, stories for around the campfire, stories if you're giving a speech to entertain people or to get people to know you. I don't think you'd find much about, you know, cinnamon toothpick stories in this book. Here's another book, and this is much more on the silver screen side of stories, Hollywood. This is called Story by Robert McKee. Fabulous book. I also took a 3-day seminar from him. He is the #1 or #2 screenwriting guru in Hollywood. The studios pay him untold sums of money just to look at their scripts, and this book is sort of a standard, not only for the writers, but for studio executives, and even for some actors and directors and producers. So you can learn maybe more than you want to know about stories from this book. If you really want to get down to some of the basics, this book, which I read maybe 20, 30 years ago, and the book was 20 or 30 years old then, it's called The Art of Dramatic Writing by Lajos Egri. And this will tell you some of the fundamental things that Mr. McKee based his book on. So I was on a phone yesterday, on a phone call with a coaching call with a former CEO in Silicon Valley who wants to move into a different part of business. And we were talking a lot about what his story is going to be. You know, people say, what's his story, or what's your story? Maybe you've heard about elevator speeches. I was on the phone today with Igor Ledahovsky, who is a hypnosis trainer and a client of mine, and he was interviewing me for one of his programs. We were talking about stories, and I mentioned 5 different types of stories that I have included in one of my products. Stories can be used very effectively in selling. I'll tell you about one of them now. A dissolver story. If people have a common objection, tell a story about someone else who had that objection, who found out why it wasn't valid, who used your product or service, and who was very happy with the results. I promise you that is way, way, way more effective than arguing with them. As Dale Carnegie once said, you can't win an argument. Even if you win, the other person's pissed off at you, so you lose. But if you tell a story, everyone's interested in the story. People might not even believe the story. If it's a true story, it'll be hard for them not to, but they won't argue with it, because stories, we're hardwired. They're in our DNA, they're in our neurology, in our bones, in our bone marrow. Many scientists believe that stories are the way that we carried the wisdom that as humans we needed to survive until we became literate and had the written word. And even today, if you think about it, there are stories in your family that go on from generation to generation that are more than just amusing things to pass the time. They tell you who you are. They tell you who you as a family are, what's important to you. They convey values. Some stories are morality devices. They tell you what's right and what's wrong. So I'd like to encourage you to start to think more about stories, start to write stories, start to tell stories, and be comfortable with using them in business. And here's why. You'll find that many of the best businesses, the most successful businesses in their category, are not just faceless corporations with empty slogans and mission statements. I mean, think about Federal Express. If you're a student of business, you'll know the story about Fred Smith, who got a C- on his paper in his MBA program at Yale. The professor thought it wouldn't be a good idea, and I bet that professor didn't get an opportunity, as friends and family, to buy the stock when it was still really cheap, and he probably realized he missed the boat on that one. Now that story, along with a lot of other things, puts FedEx in front of every other overnight delivery service in the marketplace. Or think about Richard Branson, that wild, flamboyant guy, head of Virgin Atlantic and an investor in Virgin America, and who knows how many other Virgin brands he has. Stories and people is just part of the currency of human life and part of what makes you special in business. So if you want to go to the World Copywriting blog, worldcopyblog.com, a couple things. First of all, I'll have a list of all of the books. I'll put this YouTube video on a page from late April of 2009, and also a couple posts under that. If you're interested in getting some coaching from me, if you have a business 3 to 10 to 20 people and you're really looking to take it to the next level, if you're in the 6 figures now and you're looking to go to 7 or 8, there's a nice long post there called, and I'll show you the link on screen. It's bit.ly/EG coaching, all one word, lowercase, or bit.ly/EG coaching for explosive growth coaching. You can learn a little more about that too. I'll be back next week or in a couple weeks, back pretty soon with another tip to perk up your business. My name's David Garfinkel. So long for now.